Go. Hi, and good morning again from the Nature and Wildlife Center in Nature and Wildlife Discovery Center, sorry, in Pueblo, Colorado. Again, I'm Diana, and I'm the Raptor Center Director here for the organization, and you are again at our Raptor Center. With me this morning is a handsome little fellow. This is Carlos, and Carlos is an adult male Swainson's hawk, and he's been at the center now for about 9 years. Swainson's hawks are a lovely little hawk. They're a little bit smaller than red tails, and they are a hawk of the prairie. So if you're traveling throughout the plains of Western North America, both the United States and of course into Canada, this is a bird during the warm season that you would find. They live in North America for the summer, which is where they raise their young, and then they do migrate for the winter down to South America. And pretty much all the population, pretty close to most of it, goes to an area in Argentina to spend the winter. So they're heading down south to the grasslands there. And of course, being a grassland bird, they're going to eat small grassland animals. They're big insect eaters. They often feast on grasshoppers. They'll eat small mammals, and also reptiles like snakes and lizards. And of course, they can take a small rabbit. They're not as prolific or as vicious as a hunter as a red tail. So jackrabbits aren't too much on their menu, but a small cottontail possibly could be food for a Swainson's hawk. Now, I'm very fond of Swainsons, and we often, in the summertime especially, get calls about them. And it's usually an interesting call, because usually we'll get a call in the morning, and we'll hear from someone, and they'll say, hey, there's this hawk. He's been running around my field for the last couple of hours, and he doesn't seem to be able to fly away. And we always look at the calendar and what time of year it is and go, maybe, did you just mow that field by any chance? They're like, oh yeah, it's our hay field. We just mowed it. And I thought, well, you might just have a Swainson's hawk who is feeding on grasshoppers that have been exposed by the cut grass. Their habit is Swainson's hawks will head out to the fields in the morning while it's still cool and very easy to capture grasshoppers. And then once they've fed on the hoppers, they'll head to the tree for the hot part of the day, because of course grasshoppers are slow when they're cold, and as they heat up they get faster and it's too hard to catch them. So the Swainson's hawks might retire to the shade, and then in the evening when things start to cool down and the grasshoppers cool down, of course the Swainson's hawks will return to the field and feed. So often we'll tell people when they call, they go, well, watch the hawk for a couple more hours. If he hasn't left and he does seem like he's having issues, we'll send someone out and check out the scene. And more than usually the thing is in a couple hours we get a call back and they said, oh, he flew away. So we know that we probably have a Swainson's hawk. We've also gone out, and of course as we approach the bird, he flies away, and it definitely was a Swainson's hawk. So they're just a lovely little hawk. And that's part of the reason that they have to migrate, is because they eat a lot of insects. So as it cools off here, their food supply goes down, and they do have to head for South America for the winter. And of course migration is always a very frightening time for anyone traveling long distances. And if you think about all the east-west highways that these guys have to cross, it's amazing that any of them survive. And for Swainson's hawks, it's about a 4,000 to 5,000 mile flight. So that's a long way to go. In the fall, when they're traveling, they do get together in flocks and travel southward together. And those flocks might be anywhere from 15 to 20 to more than 100 Swainson's hawks traveling south. And it's fun if you can come across one in late September when they're traveling, because the best way to look is to follow the farm equipment. So if you see somebody working their field in the fall, check it out, because there may be a group of Swainson's hawks who are hanging out behind the tractor, because as the tractor travels through the field, it stirs up insects and rodents, and the Swainson's hawks have learned that behavior and to follow tractors. And so often you'll see a small flock of Swainson's hawks hanging out in the field after the tractor has gone by. So it's a great way to find them. Now, when we see a flock of hawks, we actually call a group of hawks is called a kettle. And people always say, well, why would they call it a kettle? Well, if you've ever watched a bird of prey trying to soar, you notice that, they sort of circle and carry themselves upward. Well, if you have, 20, 30, 40 birds all on the same thermals trying to lift up, you're going to see these guys all at different heights, and they're just kind of going up and down. And whomever came up with the term kettle thought that the birds traveling upwards in that spiral, all different heights, looked like bubbles in a kettle of boiling water. So that's where we get the term a kettle of hawks. So it's kind of interesting terminology. And then that kettle, of course, will travel. They do travel across land. They don't go across the water. So they do all funnel down through Mexico and across Panama, that really narrow little isthmus there, and into South America. So if you really want to see a really fun migration event, you want to head to Central America in the fall, so you can see all these birds traveling through, hundreds and hundreds of them at a time, down into South America. So it's a pretty exciting way to watch them. Now in the spring, they travel fast, and they usually travel kind of by themselves to return home. And they can casually go south in the winter or in the fall, but in the spring, they got to get back quick. They got to cover as much ground as they can, or excuse me, pass over as much ground as they can, actually, as fast as they can, so that they can return to North America in the best condition possible, because when they get back, it's time to establish or reestablish your territory and get busy with nesting season. So Swainson's hawks are just now arriving back into North America. I haven't seen one yet, but I've talked to other birders who have spotted them. So they are returning to our area and picking up where they left off last spring. Hopefully their mate will make it back as well, and they can get busy. If you want to look for Swainson's hawks, you want to look for a big field, grassy areas, open country with, in the middle of the field, one tree. And that's where the Swainson's hawks will be. That seems to be their knowledge. So the Swainson's hawk, this little guy here, Carlos, he would, if he were in the wild, he and his mate would find that one tree in the field, and that's where they would build their nest, and that's where they would raise their young. So they're just lovely. So how do you know you're looking at a Swainson's hawk in the wild? Well, they have very good field marks. So one thing, if you're looking at Carlos, you'll notice that his chin is very, very white, and that's a distinctive mark on a Swainson's hawk. So they tend to have a white chin. Also, across their chest, they have a brown band. So Carlos, as you can see, he's got kind of this brown or rusty band of color across his chest, and that's called a bib. So he's wearing a bib, not because he's a messy eater, or maybe he is, but anyway, they have this bib across their chest. And then their underbody is pale. It's anywhere from this creamy color like Carlos has to actually white. I've seen it very white in some Swainson's hawks that have come into our center. And that's a really very distinctive mark. When they're in flight, they're actually easy to identify as well. All birds of prey, the different species, the hawks that is, you can usually tell them apart when they're soaring by their underwing pattern. So I'm going to step back just a little bit and see if I can get Carlos. He's in a cranky mood today. Yep, there he goes. He's not going to cooperate. There you go. Can you hold that? Oh, look at that beautiful underwing. And if you open up one more time, if you look at that underwing pattern, he kind of has a two-tone color on his wing linings, and that's the tissue right in here. Open. There you go. You can see the wing linings are white, and then the primaries and secondaries, open one more time, which are the long feathers of the wing, those are dark. So when you see him up from above, you kind of see a two-tone pattern. So light on the top, dark on the bottom of that underwing, and that's a Swainson's hawk. If you're seeing it the opposite, light on the top, or dark on the top and light on the bottom, you're not looking at a Swainson's hawk, you're actually looking at a turkey vulture. So they have the opposite color patterns. So that's a great way to ID them in the wild. And then also, let me turn him around. He has these beautiful his feathers are sort of tipped with a pale color. And then he has kind of a striped tail. Let me see if he'll fan it a little bit for you. There we go. Good job, Carlos. You're doing great today. So he's just a wonderful bird to have. Now, Carlos has been with us, as I mentioned. Carlos has been at the center for about 9 years. He came in the autumn during his first migration. And sadly for Carlos, he had some accident. Who knows what happened to him. He was just found along the highway. So maybe he hit a car, maybe hit a power line. We will never know because he can't tell us. But he did break the bones in his hand and wrist. And even though we did try and work with our vet to get those bones to heal, he's left with some, of course, when bones break, the body sends in calcium to help them to heal and make them solid again. And sometimes when that calcium forms, it also can interfere with the joint. And that's what's happened with Carlos. He does have some issues with calcification in his joint, so his wing extension isn't what it needs to be. And also, he's a little bit misshapen. You can tell when he's just sitting here on my hand. You can see on his right side how that wing sort of curves out and away from his body, and that's an indication of the way that the bones have healed and the misformation in those bones. So he's going to remain with us the rest of his life. Swainson's hawks in a captive situation can live into their mid-20s, so Carlos has a long way to go, and he is just a lovely resident here at the Nature and Wildlife Discovery Center. So we hope again that you're doing well and being safe. I know the world's going to start opening up a little bit. Not a good time to go crazy, but it'll be nice to kind of get out and do a few more things than we've been doing the last few weeks. We are going to still stay closed to visitors here at the Raptor Center for just a little bit longer. We just want to be safe for the public and, of course, for our staff. And we're going to keep working on some projects. We're working on trying to do a virtual tour of our center for you next weekend so that you can kind of get a behind the scenes look at what's happening here at the Raptor Center at the Nature and Wildlife Center. Again, if you need more information, feel free to leave some questions in the comment section, and I'll be happy to look at Facebook later today and answer those questions for you. You can always visit our website, hikeandlearn.org, and learn more about our organization. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We appreciate all your support and kind comments for helping us out. We are still here. We're still working, caring for the birds, and we look forward very soon to having you back here at our center and seeing these guys live in person instead of on Facebook. You guys have a safe day. Enjoy this beautiful spring Sunday. Thanks.